Hello and welcome, everybody. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces here with us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Maria Marquis, and here at Coda, I focus on customer education and enablement and just essentially hanging out with all of you, understanding what you're struggling with and trying to find a solution. And lucky for all of you, I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Glenn. Glenn, want to introduce yourself to the group for people who may not know who you are?
Hello, I'm Glenn Jaume. I was the product manager on publishing. I think we're going to talk about.
Yes. So this series is called Behind the Building Block. And think about it as like coming into our office with our product team, in this case represented by Glenn, to chat about kind of how we thought about a release, and of course answer all of your questions that you might have about this particular release itself, publishing, which I am super excited about personally. So just as a little bit of orientation, in case you've never joined one of these before, over on the right side of your screen, you'll see there's a chat field. You can go ahead and type whatever you want in there. Looks like Joe's already found it, which is fantastic. So just know that that's there for you at any point in time today. Now, if you've got a question, just so that I don't lose track of it, because really that's our main job today, is to answer any questions that you might have, I'd love it if you would just click on the Ask a Question button right below Glenn and my beautiful faces. That'll be an area where you can go ahead and type whatever's on your mind. And if you're not sure like what you might want to ask, you can still click on it and take a look at what other people are posting and then upvote or downvote. So if you've got the same question as someone else, it's a great way to get that connection. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to jump in and start exploring this launch. All right, so I'm going to pull it up, and then Glenn, if you would just do me a favor and let me know when you can see my screen, that'd be fantastic. All right, so here I am inside of a Coda Doc, and those of you who have to do presentations and also present data, I love to just embed my slide decks inside of my Coda Docs because I can actually do the presentation here, and then I can also have all of the extra information. So if we think about publishing, I wanted to just start off with like, what even is this? So this is a brand spanking new release. It released on, I think, Tuesday, Glenn? Is that correct? Monday.
Yes,
time flies when you're having fun. So publishing is this new ability for us to actually make Coda Docs available in a public way. So kind of like if you were posting a blog or posting something to your social media or submitting an article on some website. This is our solution to that. So let's take a look at some reasons why we might publish it. So sometimes people like to publish as like having an information center. So one of our PMs, one of Glenn's colleagues, Jeremy, actually recently published a Coda Doc that has a whole bunch of links to all of these relevant articles that he found that helped him as he was stepping into a product management role. And we'll actually be chatting about that next week if any of you would like to join in. It's also a great way to just share an idea. This is something that we see all the time with folks who've maybe written a book, like Reid Hoffman in his Blitzscaling book. Like, here's an idea I want to share with the world. But then the cool thing about publishing Coda Docs is that it's not just, hey, here's something I wrote, but you can actually interact with it too. So you can actually be kind of moving and toggling and having some adjustments. It's also a great place for like a toolkit or an app or just getting input from people. So instead of us just kind of talking about this, let's actually take a look at a few of these examples. So I'm going to go ahead, open up our side panel over here, and we'll take a look at some examples. So this is another new feature that I really like, which is the ability to collapse or expand different parts of your Coda Doc. So if you've got lots of text, you can actually decide to have it open up. So this Reid Hoffman's Blitzscaling toolkit, let's take a look at this one. This is very much like, I want to share an idea that I have with somebody. And let's just wait for the internet to catch up with us here. All right, fantastic. So notice up here that we're not saving it. We're just kind of playing around. So I can be making, clicking around in here, and it's not going to affect that core doc, which is kind of cool that I can be interacting and also not messing up whatever the builder put together. So you'll see we've got a cool ability to have a header image, so you can have something really great there that allows you to kind of add a bit of polish to your doc. And now what we've got here is we've got essentially what looks like a blog post. But unlike just a blog post, you can actually then see up here at the top, we've got a bunch of really helpful links that look like sections on a website. But these are actually just Coda sections. So those things that you normally see on the left side of your screen, they're up here along the top, making it feel much more polished in that way. So now what we could do is we could see, great, we could read the book. Here it is. I could go ahead and see, oh, well, I don't have enough time to read. So I just want to see the outline of everything that's inside of it. And then I can also do some of the things that Reed put out there, like, oh, should we blitzscale? What are those different aspects? So this is a way for Reed to collect all of the information that he has about this idea and share it more efficiently with the world. So that's one option that we have. Let's actually take a look at another idea over here.
What are we going to look at?
We're going to look at, I think it's going to be Rahul's superhuman one as well. Yes, the interactive blog post. So this is something that Rahul from Superhuman, we're going to open this in a new tab just so we don't have to go back and forth. I think the original blog post that he wrote was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, right, Glenn?
It was a few years ago, yeah.
Yeah. And so what he did is after he and his team did a bunch of data analysis on how people use their tool, he put together this big blog post about how they decided how to determine their product market fit. So unlike Reed's Coda published doc, that is much more about, hey, here's my idea, take a look at it, here's my recommendations. This is actually much more interactive. So we have all of the details here about what this experiment was, but then notice here we've got some controls. So maybe I want to see from not all of the personas, but everybody who is in customer success, kind of how did they feel about this particular release, or how would they feel about losing Superhuman? And I could then filter all of this information and see it in a much more sort of customized way. So as I'm thinking about interacting with Rahul's ideas, I can actually customize it for what I'm interested in. And notice there's other controls here as well, as far as who answered it, showing the results for the question. And then instead of just looking at their results, I can now set up my own survey. So here are the questions that Rahul recommends that I use. I can then think about how I want to segment my audience and then also analyze the feedback. So I could go ahead and copy this doc and start working from it. So this is kind of like that next level. And Glenn, let me know what you sort of think about this, that this use case was the one that really excited us. Like, how can we also add this element? So maybe you want to share a little bit of the ideas behind how we thought about this interaction mode.
I think there's a bunch of really cool things about this. So one, you can go back and read Rahul's old blog post, and he shared some of his data and shared his philosophy on how to find product market fit. And one of the great things about doing it here was, one, we could bring in some of the real data and you can interact with it. And you can see how this comes to life as you kind of change those settings. And what we really wanted from this is we found there were loads of blog posts and frameworks and ideas out there that when you have a bunch of static kind of text and images, don't really come to life in the same way. So this interaction allows you to kind of really make that shine, but also backed up with something we've done for a long time, this kind of template philosophy of something practical that you can take away with you. So if you want to follow this as well, you can copy this doc. And so you get this great benefit of this thing that's not quite a blog post, not quite static, and also it's like practical. So there's all these elements in there. So it's like a new type of post that you can create that there's nothing quite like this, I don't think, and that's what excited us about it. Because
usually if you're putting out like a methodology or template, it's like you have to link to something else. Like it can't all happen in the same spot. It's like, oh, hey, here's a Google Doc that I wrote that allows you to, enter it in, or here's an Excel spreadsheet, just change the values. Whereas here it can all be in one spot, which is, for me, I think one of the most exciting things. The other thing I love, and this is actually from our own examples, is this idea that you can gather information. So instead of just projecting information out and letting people play with it and having them take their own steps, you can actually also pull in information. And this is actually one of our own published Coda Docs where folks can request a pack. And Glenn, you're actually the author of this one.
I did.
So maybe you want to just let people know kind of what you were thinking about here, how this works.
Yeah, so it's been a great sort of evolution. If you've been with us since we launched packs, when packs first launch, and you go type for a pack and you don't find it, you hit a button that requests one, and that used to just ping us an intercom message. Then we upgraded to a type form to get more structure around it. And now we've kind of cut all of that out and it's just straight into a doc. And so all this is doing is anyone can go in here, anyone at all that they log into Coda, and they can just request any idea they have, and then they can upvote them. And it gives us a few things. It means that now there's this more interactive way of seeing what people are requesting from the community. So when you have an idea and a thing you want to request, it's not just, I have this isolated idea. I don't understand what anyone else wants from Coda, or
Mhm.
why did Coda release that pack and not the pack I wanted?
Yes.
Well, now you can kind of see as well, there's a status on here where you can see
Mhm.
what packs have we shipped, what are we building at the moment. And this is kind of what we're looking at as well internally when it's like, oh, what should we go build next?
Mhm.
And there's reasons why we're not always going to take the stuff from that top of the list, but it gave us this tool for doing that. You can see your own requests, you can search for the packs. There's a whole bunch of things you can do with this. So it's not just like a product upvote, downvote thing that you can buy third parties for. It also has these other elements you can look through. And again, there was no other way of kind of building a tool like this other than using Coda. So it's a great way for us of showing off how Coda can be used in this way, but it's just really practical and really useful for how we make decisions.
Yeah, and I would say for any of you who are also running a product team or dealing with any kind of customer request, this is a really great way to have a public facing, essentially like roadmap analysis and be able to gather that information and start to connect your customers together. So it's actually a very simple doc that's powering this, but it ends up being a huge benefit for us because we've got it all right here. And it also allows with that filtering of kind of your own personal interaction with it too, which I like a lot.
It's on my to-do list to turn it into a template so other people can take the bones of it and use it. I just need to get around to cleaning it up.
Yeah. And our last example here is this is much more like an app. So up to our conversations today, we've been talking about like publishing with here's an idea, interact with my idea, tell me what you think, I'm gathering information from you. But this is much more like an app. So Cassie Ho is one of our customers, and she is this amazing fitness guru. She is awesome. She's got a YouTube channel, and she's got a huge community of people who do her workouts with her. And one of the things that she's really famous for is that she has a bunch of different like 30-day challenges or the challenge of the month where you're working out every day with her using her videos. And in the past, she would have her YouTube channel and then a document that would link to the video of the day, but she wanted to have more of that community aspect. So we actually worked together, and this is the result, which is this interactive calendar. So what I think is really cool about this is you can decide, you know what, I want to join this workout and be in this public doc with everybody else who's part of the community. I want people to know that I'm here. Or if you're like, hey, maybe I don't want everyone to know I'm here yet, you can just copy the doc for yourself and have it be your own personal workout time. There's then some instructions here as far as, hey, start with today's workout and then track your progress. And you can also get it on mobile as well. So let's take a look at what this would be. I would go to today's workout because I'm obviously ready to work out in my sweater here today. And it lets us know for today, here are the things that I need to do. I need to stretch to start feeling flexible, and then I need to stretch my legs. This actually seems like a really attainable workout for me today. And what I like is that we've got a link to the YouTube video that I can watch here, and then I mark it off as done, which actually populates my progress. And then I also can see the full calendar as well. So I can see my progress, how are me and all of the other people who are in this doc doing? Are we completing? Have we missed anything? And then also seeing that full calendar. So this is like a really interesting way of creating that app-like experience and allowing it to be something that is publicly facing. And then also just, hey, here's an app I've built. I want to share it with you. Feel free to make your own copy. So Glenn, if we think about kind of these four different categories, I know that when you and the team were deciding how you wanted to build this, figuring out the different use cases was really critical. So maybe you want to share a little bit about kind of how you and the team thought through that process?
Yeah, we looked at a lot of the docs that we saw out there already being shared. If people just sharing public with the world and then post those links in the community or post them on Twitter. We looked at the types of templates we're building. We looked at the things we're seeing for customers. And we found, as I said, these kind of four main types that we see. They're like straight up blog posts. And the main benefit we wanted to bring to that was all these sections. So now, rather than just one long blog post, you can build a guide. You can do any of those things, have all those different sections. We saw that there was this gap for these kind of interactive experiences, like the Rahul one we showed earlier, where you have a blog or you have an idea and a concept that you want to express through interactivity. And that was something that wasn't well answered because either you had to go build a fancy website or something, or you had to have a static. And so that came in as the second piece. And then the third level of interaction being the one we last saw of this, I want a community to be able to contribute together, or the same about Packstock. I want people, the whole community to be able to vote on this and everyone see the same results.
Yeah.
And they were all kind of new experiences that we wanted to push with publishing. The final one was our kind of templates, which is what we have done for a long time in the gallery. And so publishing really allowed us to expose these other 3 types in a more obvious way than before, where it was happening. Some of these things weren't available or they weren't as polished as we wanted them to be.
Yeah. So Glenn, what is your favorite part of this publishing feature? Obviously, it's a really robust launch. There's lots of things that are going into it, but what's your favorite part if you had to choose?
I think that's a tough one.
I
think
know.
the two things I'm sort of toying between. One is the play mode that we introduced, this kind of like interaction with a doc, but without it kind of saving. And that's an experience that we kind of have had on and off over the years. People might remember bits of it, but it wasn't very accessible, and now is. Or the other thing I would maybe compete with is the cover photos, because I think it really transforms how a doc looks in that first impression and makes it feel more alive and interesting. And the great thing about that is obviously it works in regular docs as well. So whether you're publishing or not, you've benefited from us creating a lot of these new features.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, that the publishing launch, we were thinking about how do you make your docs look amazing so that when you're sharing it with the world, it has that polish, it has that, that crisp look. It's very nice that we've got a lot of optimized text that's going on, the images, all of that. And even though we were thinking about it from publishing, it actually really comes back to just your regular old Coda Docs that you're using every single day, all of a sudden have like this new feeling. I know for myself, my team has a Coda Doc that we use to manage all of our meetings and our team tasks. And now just by having, cover photos that we've got there, it just makes it feel a little bit more personalized. And something that we actually do is we alternate every week who runs our team kickoff. And part of that is you get to choose the cover photo for the week. So it's kind of just like a fun little team culture thing that's happening. But I find that all of a sudden using Coda feels different, even if you have no intention to publish that doc out to the world. So there's a lot of like downstream benefits that I think is really interesting. Also, just a reminder here today, if you've got questions, let us know, post it to the Ask a Question option. We'll be keeping a close eye on that. Even though we'll be chatting about various things here, you don't have to worry about waiting for us to stop talking. Anytime you've got something on your mind, just let us know. So as far as Glenn, we saw the request a pack doc that you made, but have there been any other ways that you've started using this publishing feature to date? Obviously, it's still very new, but any other things or ideas of how you're going to use it in the future?
Yeah, I've been publishing quite a few docs, and they're the kind of things that even when we had the template gallery and obviously I work Coda, so I could put stuff in there, they didn't have a home there. And so like a couple that have been helpful to me and I shared, one is just like I went to Japan recently, and so there's a doc of 10 things I enjoyed in Japan, and it's a really nice and easy way of sharing information like that. I can just drag images in, type some text in, add colors, and it just felt really rich and interesting and was easier to do than a lot of blog stuff out there and have to set anything else up. It's just done. And the other was I built a Stitch Fix discount calculator for my wife. So she had this problem, and I won't go too much in the mechanics of Stitch Fix, but you pay the money, they send you a bunch of clothes, you can send some back or keep them. And when you do this, there's like a trade-off. If you keep everything, you get a discount. If you send some back, you don't. And so she always had this like dilemma of am I better off keeping something I don't want to get a discount or not?
Grab the calculator.
A calculator to do it for her. And now it's an interactive play doc that's now, on indexed on Google or whatever, and people look for Stitch Fix discount calculator, they can find it, and they can just put in the things they bought and quickly get an answer. And it's the kind of thing that is too niche for a business to go build as an app.
Right.
It's not that, there's a bunch of calculations in there that a spreadsheet could maybe do, but wouldn't quite look as pretty to do it. And so it's the kind of thing that I've been really excited seeing through publishing already. Things we've seen from the community already. So someone published a doc of the hidden categories in Netflix. You can just go look through the database.
I gotta check that one out.
Yeah, it's really cool. And so it's nice seeing all these things emerge that before would have been relegated to like a boring blog post that you'd be trying to look through, or most people wouldn't have the skills to build a proper app around it or website, or wouldn't want to pay the money to support that kind of thing. So seeing these kind of smaller, helpful things added to the internet, added to the community, which was kind of really promising.
Yeah, and I hadn't really thought about that, but that sometimes it's like you have an idea that maybe it's a simple thing, but it is so well suited to a problem. And that sometimes, how do you get it out there in a way that lets people even notice that it exists, right? And then like that people want to use it and engage with it. So it's kind of like this allows you to skip through like web development or any crazy spreadsheet, building and then finding the right place to post it. Kind of already automatically happens. And all you need to do to publish your doc is just click share and choose the publish option. And I do like that, we're seeing in just the first, week of this being available, we're seeing these like big honking docs that are being published, like Rahul's Superhuman doc and Reed's whole Blitzscaling thing. But there's also so many just like tiny, small, useful things, which I think is really, that was a surprise for me. It's like, we needed a place for that. And now it has a bit of a home, which is great. So Glenn, can you walk us through how you and the team like planned and then built this feature? Like let's do the montage of how you went from idea to then execution.
I mean, this project was crazy quick compared to lots of things we do. Well, we're pretty quick overall, but this was exceptionally quick. I think it was just before the holidays, sort of early December, we were looking at what we do. Our team looks at the ecosystem of Coda. That's a lot of so we work on packs and we think about how we move things forward. And one of the things we were feeling were we were seeing people sharing docs on Twitter and sharing docs around the place, and we felt like the experience was never quite right. And earlier in the year, we'd ran a thing called MakerFest that you may have seen with Product Hunt, we partnered with, and we saw people publishing all these amazing docs. But again, the experience was never quite right. There were so many things we had to explain to people, like, oh, there's this play mode hack that's useful, or how do you not let someone copy a doc? How do you make this look nicer? All those kind of things kept coming up. And we thought, well, we want to take our ecosystem of docs to the next level. We want to go beyond, say, where the gallery is at the moment. It's very template focused, very focused on what we do and what we build. How do we open that up more? And so we, sat down and looked through lots of examples in the community of what people were doing and kind of set out a few goals early on. We established those 4 different types of docs that I mentioned that we wanted to go support. We went and looked at all the kind of nits of how you go share a doc publicly in the moment and what are the things you would care about and want, and the difference of consuming versus creating. So hence the kind of top nav support, where just much more kind of consuming friendly as opposed to the left nav, which better suits kind of makers often. We came up with those concepts, and we to be honest, we built a lot of it even before the holidays, because we had all the building blocks there. One of the great things about being a product manager and building stuff at Coda is, we build stuff in a very building block way. And that means we can lean on all these previous things that we've done and kind of iterate really quickly. And so the main stuff was, how do we make sure that Google can crawl these pages? How do we change some of the nav to feel better, clean up some of the UI to just feel like a great, interactive, readable experience as opposed to Maker experience. And then we spent the last month really kind of polishing that and kind of getting it exactly where we want it to be. And this is really just the beginning of the process. And we got some good questions coming in, which is awesome. So CB asked, either during or after this call, could you share links to some of those templates? I just put them into the chat field. I have a link to the doc that I was using to present with the links out to each one of those little mini apps that we took a look at. So hopefully that helps. And the other question we have from Jean-Pierre, good to see you, Jean-Pierre, always glad to have you with us, which is, will it be possible to publish a doc that can't be copied by external parties? So Glenn, want to talk through kind of how we're thinking about this element? You kind of already can. There's when you go to publish, there's an option that says copyable on or off. So you can turn that off and then the copy button goes away. And it's actually off by default. You have to go turn it on. So if you want people to be able to copy your doc, you have to go turn that on.
So when you decide to publish, you can decide what kind of interaction do you want people to have, view, play, or edit? View, play, edit. View, play, and edit,
and then there are other options.
And then you can toggle on various elements. So you really can customize exactly kind of what you want the life of that doc to be. Oh, good question. So Jean-Pierre's like, oh, it'd be great if, the link needs a password. Let me go ahead and fix that link for you. I'll update that in a moment. So while I grab that new link, Glenn, do you want to chat about some of the things that didn't make the cut? Things that you were planning on doing that didn't end up working in this first part of the launch?
Yeah, I think there's a range of things, as there always are. I think there are a few things that we didn't get to yet that we were thinking about around reactions to docs, being able to like and interact more with them at a slightly meta level to the doc. Can I like it? Can I comment on it? Those kind of features you might see in other blog platforms and stuff. We're still exploring those options. We're trying to find how we want to do that in a real Coda way and not do it just for the sake of doing it.
Right.
It's one thing we're thinking about. And the stuff that didn't make the cut that we're looking at, there's a couple of things that are coming very soon. One of them today, for example, the ability to go edit your maker profile name. So if you clicked for the buttons and got something you didn't like, later today you'll be able to change that yourself. And we'll open up some more of those things that didn't quite make the cut. And then we're exploring bigger things as well. So I'm not going to go too much into it, but the stuff we're looking at the moment is around the gallery itself. So we have this template gallery all controlled by us. What if that was better connected to publishing in that new world? It's something we're actively exploring.
And one thing I just want to highlight from what Glenn says is that when you publish, not only is your doc now out there however you want it to be utilized, but you also then have a profile page based on your sort of username. In this case, my handle is @Maria-Marquis. So I can actually direct people to like my little zone on the internet too. So if I'm sharing ideas or if I'm collecting a lot of things together, you can kind of promote yourself in that way too, which is pretty great. So my next question, Glenn, that I'd love to hear is, were there any surprises during the development of this feature? Anything that was unexpected?
Yeah, lots. I mean, there's
how long do you have?
Yeah, I mean, in the weeds a bit, there were just whole lots of interactions that we had to go figure out with workspaces and with our Google Drive integrations, all that stuff. It's probably not that interesting to go into, but there was a lot of complexity in how do you make this seamless without it feeling without us having to ask you too many questions. I think the biggest stuff we spent a lot of time on was the interactive modes that we have. So the play mode and the edit mode, and there were a lot of options there in terms of, do we want this to feel exactly like editing in a regular doc? You know, as in if you share a doc in an edit mode with anyone or the old play mode, you could go mess with anything, go delete all the tables, you can mess with the canvas, you can change all that. And that didn't feel like the kind of experience we wanted for publishing. So you'll notice when you publish a doc in play mode or edit mode, you can go like change values and tables and press buttons, but you can't like delete a table or go mess with the canvas text or change the cover photo. We locked some of those things down. And some of it wasn't even that it was more just we wanted to stop anything accidentally happening in a doc. So that people couldn't accidentally come in, change text. And it felt really odd, especially with those play mode kind of docs before, that a doc like Rahul's before, if you put it in play mode, would be, I can interact with this stuff, but also I can edit his blog posts and delete things. And that felt very weird. So we spent a lot of time on that and looking at how that would work and the kind of surprises there. I think we were sort of pleasantly surprised by how well the kind of search stuff worked. We've never optimized our docs to be indexed by Google. And so that was something that was really interesting to go turn on, and it kind of just worked. We did some tweaking to it to make it feel better and get better results, but that was a very pleasant surprise in doing it. I think the biggest surprise overall was the top nav piece. Like that wasn't part of the initial design. It was something when we were playing with other things that would make it feel interesting that we just tested on the doc, and it just felt transformative. It just felt like these docs feel so different now. They feel so much more consumable, especially for these simple docs with a few sections. That side panel felt very heavy and kind of
like admin.
And then it just transformed how that felt, and that was kind of a big surprise and changed a lot of how we thought about these docs and how we built them and how it worked.
Totally. Yeah, and it's amazing how like the smallest thing can completely change like how something feels. Like just from switching to left to the top, all of a sudden, like, oh, I'm on a website. I know exactly what to do. And I'll say one of my personal favorite things that was surprising to me is, since my Coda doc that I published was the Learn Coda, which is all of our Learn videos and starter exercises in one Coda doc that people can just go through, which I really, really loved making. But one of the things that was really surprising to me is like, oh man, I've got a little typo I need to fix. Oh, I can just make the change and it's automatically up to date right out there in the world, but nobody else can mess with what I'm doing. Which is really cool. Like, it's kind of like, you know, if I wanted to make updates to a website, that could be a more involved process, but editing a doc and then knowing that it's just immediately hot off the presses exactly what I need it to be was a really wonderful, like, unexpected surprise. I was like, oh, I guess that makes perfect sense, but I didn't realize how valuable that would be to me as a maker. It looks like we have another question here, which is interested in hearing more about Google indexing. How is the title and description picked up by Google? Can you add graphics and meta info for social sharing?
Yeah, so when you publish a doc the entire first section of the doc, whatever is the top left in your left nav, furthest left in your top nav, is what we give to Google to index. So none of the rest of the doc currently, but that part of the docs will be indexed. Google will go grab the title of your doc as the title of the URL you see there. It will also look at the subtitle of a doc that you can now add in that header, which is the kind of meta description.
Right.
But we also respect in your doc the H1s, H2s, H3s. You pass those to Google like that. So yeah, I think is that the main stuff. And the cover image on the first section is what we use in all the unfurls.
Yeah.
So if you would paste it into Twitter or anything else like that, that's where we pull from. And that's where Google will pull images from as well if it wants to render those.
And I will say this kind of reinforces the best practice that we've always had, which is that first section in your doc should be some kind of like information, introduction. What is this thing? Who are you? What's the purpose? Yeah. And that kind of also helps you figure out, how do I want this to go out into the world? What do I want my first impression to be? That kind of helps you reinforce it. And I do love that the image that you use just comes out there because it adds this whole new level of polish. And if you're like, I don't have a good image, don't worry, we have an integration with Unsplash, so you can pull in all of their beautiful, beautiful images. They're totally for free, just as part of your Coda doc. So hopefully that helps, CB. Awesome question. The next question I have for you, Glenn, and please, everybody, keep asking those questions. These are absolutely great. This is all about you and your time, so just let us know what we can help with. But I'd love to know from you, sort of with the team, what was the biggest learning that you and the team had during this, design, development, and launch process?
That's a big question.
I know. I'm full of big questions. Yeah. That's what I do.
I think some of the biggest learning with this, is we started with an idea that we were going to be quite prescriptive of things. And we started in a few ways. Like, it felt very complicated to go make a lot of these publishing features work with the way regular docs work. They felt very different. And there were a lot of challenges we had to address when dealing with that. I think the biggest learning with this, which is kind of where we always end up at Coda, is that these things need to be building blocks. If we try and make them special case for publishing, if we try and do that, then they become confusing to people. Like, why is this different to this? And there's small bits of that in there, but I hope they all make sense and are kind of easy to understand. So I think the learning with this, which is probably just a reinforced learning of things we think about a lot, is that we should make things as composable as possible.
Right.
We tried to not take that too much to the extreme in this. There are certain things we don't let you mess with up front. So like an example of that is the edit mode. So by default, you press edit mode. As I mentioned earlier, you can't delete tables, you can't mess with the counts, you can't change some of that. But if you are in the team tier or above and you have access to locking, if you go change locking, that will kind of be reflected in the edit mode. So you can have granular controls over some of that. And that was like, if you have locking, it made sense those things were connected. And if you didn't, we don't want to confuse you by saying, oh, it's powered by locking or the other sort of things. And so again, we're always trying to take stuff back to building blocks. That's why so many things ended up in the regular doc. Cover photos originally were going to be a publishing special feature that would sit above the doc and be this special thing. And we realized we're adding all this confusion and complexity by that. And regular docs would so much benefit if we brought them back there. So as much as possible, we did that. And I'd say even top nav is something that isn't in regular docs at the moment. It's something we looked at a lot there and we're still playing with. And so even some of these publishing features may come back to regular docs.
Yeah. And one thing I think it's interesting, you in particular, Glenn, talking about building blocks and composability, because if you've seen any of our previous Behind the Building Blocks, you'd know that Glenn also PM'd our packs and our crosstalk launches. And how those two fit together is purely because of building blocks, right? If we think about the infrastructure that the team built for packs, we then were like, well, let's do crosstalk using that same infrastructure. Exactly. And then now, how do we take the core doc infrastructure and make sure that it's holding true in publishing? So you're getting this like economy and this optimization. And sometimes like the answer you need is in the past, like what you already did. So I think it's really interesting sort of hearing you kind of make that more and more a part of how you think about like the product in particular, which is pretty cool. Oh, more questions. Fantastic. Why would it take? What would it take to have a form entry with anonymous users? Glenn, you want to chat a little bit about this idea here? Thanks, Shannon.
Yeah. So right now, the easiest way of doing it is to use a third-party form service like Google Forms or Typeform and embed it in your doc. That is the simplest way to have a form that can be anonymous and use all the form functionality. And we've seen a few published like that already. The medium to longer term answer is there's a few things we're working on there. One more immediate one is we're looking at anonymous editing. So that would mean when someone, you still have to be logged into Coda, but you can interact with a doc without having to kind of be known in that doc. That may lead on to logged out anonymous editing, but not currently planned. And forms is this sort of perpetual project that is almost...
It's our white whale.
Yeah, it very much is. Like the amount of design docs we've had for the amount of times we talked about it, and it never has quite made the cut for various priority reasons. So hopefully in the future we'll get to that. I mean, I think it's something that we all really want to see in Coda and believe it as an idea, and eventually it's going to make it over that.
Yes. We actually had a really big internal conversation about this in particular. Like now that we're moving into publishing, how does that change the expectations that people have when they're interacting with something? So this is very much top of mind. And like Glenn said, even though we launched this week, this is really just the beginning of now this feature that we will continue to nurture. So definitely stay tuned on that. And Shannon, know that you are not alone in wanting it. In the meantime, using that embedded Typeform or Google Form or Jotform, or even using our Zapier integration to kind of glue these things together will be an interim solution for you. Great question. Awesome. Another question here from Asher. Thanks for joining us today, which is going back to Unsplash. Aside from being able to reposition the image on the y-axis, are there plans for x-axis movement or resizing?
Yeah, no current plans. That's so in the cover image, you can only move it up and down. For those who haven't played with it, you can't side to side or zoom in on it. No current plans to change that. We looked at it originally with a bunch of options. And the reasons we didn't really, some of it was time, some of it was the complexity of those other interactions, some of it was the, especially with Unsplash, it could lead to worse looking images. If we're trying to have that balance between composability and making sure things look nice. The way around it at the moment is not ideal, but you can upload images yourself. You don't need to use the Unsplash integration. And so we've created a lot of our own images for docs that you'll see in some of the ones we've been promoting. But also you can go download those images from Unsplash, crop them and put them back in. I know it's not ideal, but there are ways you could do that and get the image you want there, even if it's not directly in our UI.
Got it. Cool. Thanks, Glenn. So the next question that I have for you, Glenn, which is, I actually think it's interesting to know about like the timeline and the team. So could you talk a little bit about kind of the time this took and then the number of people on the team and what their roles were? I think it's kind of fun to know the cast of characters behind the movie.
I can probably look up exactly when we started, but I know it was just for the holidays because I remember us talking about it and being like, have we got enough time to even scope this before we all vanish for
eggnog?
For all that stuff.
And figgy pudding.
Exactly. And so we started then. The team is myself as the PM. We have a designer, Helena, who work very closely on designing all this. And then the engineering side of things is now 6 people. I think it was 5 when we started. The new person's joined. So we have our CTO, Alex. We have Jonathan, Varney, Martin, John, and Hari, or our whole team of engineers. Some of those names you may have seen before in the community and other projects. That's the kind of core team that designed and built this whole thing. But there's a whole cast of other people that were involved in it. So a lot of other teams are involved in individual features. We had support from other teams on the cover photo side of things. We had support from other teams on like really in the weeds options on sharing and editing and how those things interact with each other. So we had support from one of our other teams on that. Our go-to-market team, people like Justin and Al and Evan, who was in the community, helped us with a lot of feedback and that sort of things. I mean, almost the entire company was involved.
It does take a village for sure.
Yeah. So our core team of people is like 8 of us who that's all we did full time, was build this thing. But I'd say the whole company involved either directly in helping add new features to it or indirectly with publishing and helping give feedback and publish those docs.
I love it. And I think that's an interesting thing about, one of the benefits that we have here at Coda is that we're still a small enough company that we can really work as a village in many ways, and that you can really tap the whole brain trust, and that if there's something you're interested in, you can be involved and be connected, and there will be a place for you. One thing I do just want to highlight is, Glenn mentioned Al and Justin, who are both working on my team, which is all about customer outreach and connection. So if you have like a glimmer of an idea for a doc that you'd want to publish, but you're just like not quite sure what to do, reach out to us at support@coda.io or clicking the little intercom button in your Coda account. We are always more than happy to help. So just let us know what's on your mind. And even if you just want to kind of brainstorm, any of our customer folks are here to support you in that process. So if you've got an idea, we want to make it happen. And that actually reminds me, I actually really like the story behind the internal project name that we had for this.
Oh, yeah.
Glenn, do you want to share a little bit about this? Because it really, to me, kind of captures our intent and kind of how we see it.
Yeah, when we start a lot of these projects, classic tech company thing, you give them a code name or you give them some project name. And that's a reflection as well of the fact that publishing is just a part of this whole strategy that we have. And so the thing was called Project Panama, which is not actually to do with Panama, the country, directly. It relates to, in 1915, the World's Fair came to San Francisco, and the World's Fair is when some of the greatest minds and thinkers came to an area for a whole year, and they built amazing structures and they showed off things. So Ford had a whole production plant here. We had Edison showing off various electric stuff and things. And
look at this light bulb.
A whole bunch of people. You can go look up on the World's Fair. It was actually called the Panama Expo because it was also to celebrate the opening of the Panama Canal. That was obviously a great feat of engineering. And the one interesting thing about that, to me, or the thing that was inspiring about that, was that all these amazing makers kind of came together. And that's kind of how we saw this whole initiative. How do we bring some of the world's best makers together in Coda to share their ideas, and how do we want them to be able to express those ideas in new ways than they've done before? Yeah. And so that was our sort of code name that we still use for it internally, and how we think about this is really how do we kind of promote everyone else, not just us, how do we promote everyone's ideas?
Because to us, I think, from the very beginning, Coda has been about how do we just help those people who, the people who get things done, make it easier for them to do it and get their ideas out there and affect change, right? And that's really where this all fits. So I just love that little history. Thank you for indulging me, Glenn. I appreciate it. So Glenn, I would love to know if you were talking to another team who was thinking about making like a big addition to their product or to their service offerings like this, what advice would you give them as they start to approach like making that big new addition to how their company thinks about what they do?
I mean, the thing for us was very much knowing who we were building for and what was most important to it. So this thing had a very, as I said, aggressive timeline. From beginning to end, it was like 2 and a bit months. And so for us, it was really important to know exactly what we're building and pushing out what wasn't important for now.
Yes.
And so I think for us, that was really important because we wanted to get something out sooner. We could have spent 6 months plus building this thing and add loads more. And the plan is we will add loads more to this in the future and kind of push that. And we went earlier than that because we felt like we knew what the core of this idea needed to be and that there was value in that. And so I think that's the thing you'll hear from a lot of product people is how do you get to something? Some people call it the minimum viable product. So I don't really think of it as much like that, and more of like, what is the thing that is going to excite people and is enough of the core idea without getting distracted and over-scoping it?
Because I think you're right. Like when you're working on something new, it's so exciting, right? There's so many like, oh, what if we did this? And oh, this would be so cool if, and it's very easy to get lost in like the excitement of the problem and lose sight of like, well, who are we actually solving this for? And what do they actually need? And to be able to kind of hold yourself accountable to that, I think is the big challenge of anyone who is creative and excited and wants to move forward. Yeah, go ahead.
One other thing actually reminds me of is we also wanted to be aspirational with this and that we thought a lot about what are the experiences that people haven't been able to do before. So I mentioned the kind of play and edit docs that there just isn't really anything like that. We know when we're introducing a new paradigm like that, it's going to be tough at first for people to kind of get their head around what this is.
Yes.
But that was really important to us. And I think if you're just building something that is the same as what everyone else has done, then you're going to kind of get a bit stuck by that or copy their mistakes and kind of end up just doing that. And so we really thought long and hard about it and what those paradigms meant. And I think some of that thinking is going to be paying off in the coming months and years as more people understand what this is and we expand it and kind of explain a lot of that more. But those principles came in now. Those principles are important to establish before we build anything.
Yeah, I love this idea of like, what do we want to make possible? Right? That people haven't known it's the thing they've been waiting for,
Yep.
Yeah, and sort of imagining what that could look like in that future state. Amazing. So the last question I have, and then please everybody let us know what questions you have about publishing, Coda in general, like anything Coda related is fair game. Totally happy to assist with anything. But Glenn, let's you and I hop into our TARDIS, our time machine.
Yeah.
And let's travel back to right before the holidays. Both of us are getting ready to eat all kinds of figgy pudding and turkeys and all kinds of good things. What would you do differently if you could do it all over again?
Yeah, I mean, probably a few things.
Get your list out.
I think one of the first things is that we started running into very early on some challenges with other decisions that we've made before of how things work. And what we were trying to do originally was kind of work around them, so to put more finer point on it. Things like when you share an editable doc with someone, they become a member of that doc, they join your workspace. And we were trying to find all these clever ways of working around those problems. And we realized what we were doing was just trying to avoid those problems that we had from the way Coda was designed before. This is a new concept that we never really designed for. And so I think we spent a lot of time trying to avoid issues and find clever workarounds when we should have just tackled those things head on.
Yeah.
And once we did and we came up with solutions, it all started to feel a lot better. It started to feel a lot simpler because now it just made sense rather than, there's this special rule for this publishing thing that works differently. And so that was probably the biggest thing that we should have dealt with earlier, is taking those things on.
It's kind of like it's the whole Michelangelo, you have to just like chip away everything that's not the answer. And we're like, we could like glue an arm on the statue and like do this stuff. But like, no, let's just chip it away and find what's inside. I love that. Awesome. Well, we've got about 15 more minutes. So if there's any questions that all of you have, let us know by posting to that Ask a Question. I will say, Glenn, while we wait for folks to add anything to the list that they'd like us to discuss, is there anything else about this launch or the feature that I'm missing or that you think would be really valuable for folks to know or things to try first?
We covered a lot of stuff. I mean, I think I've been really happy with just the amount of docs we've seen published and all the different things. And, what I was most looking forward to with this was that the way it was working before with, say, our gallery is you had an idea, you had to maybe get up the courage to then send some message and had to kind of fit what we wanted in our gallery, and some ideas didn't quite fit. And then now it's just open to anyone and anyone kind of publish things. And in the future, that will be better connected to our gallery, and we'll talk more about that in the coming months. And I think it's just been so fun seeing all the creativity from the community and all these ideas come out, because there's just things you never think of when you see it in a Coda doc and you see it as published. You're like, obviously that's a great idea. That works really well. Yeah. And so that's probably been the thing that's been most exciting and kind of energizing for the team, is seeing those things go out there and those ideas come to life, and people be inspired by the other docs they're seeing and kind of riffing on them. And that is something we want to encourage and bake into more. One thing I'm really interested in the concept of is like remixing. Like, how's this going to feel in the future when I can take someone else's doc and do something else with it? We see that happen internally a bunch. So if you may have seen, was it a year ago maybe, we had our Game of Thrones Death Pool doc, where you could vote on who you thought was going to survive that show or not. And I did a riff with that at some point, which let you predict the outcome of the English Premier League for those that are interested in soccer. And there's been other riffs on it since, where you just take the core bones of the doc and change the theme of it. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that, and we're going to want to connect those things up and explore that. I'm excited in general just about the whole ecosystem. Like, this is just the beginning of how we let the community express themselves and build on top of Coda, because we recognize that we are a group of 60, 70 people. Even as we keep growing, we're always going to be finite, and we're always going to be smaller than our community. And so we want to give more and more tools to the community who have great ideas of how to build great docs, and components of docs, and packs, and all those things, to be able to express them and share them with everyone else. Yes. And so that's the whole sort of reason for this ecosystem team existing, really, is to keep expressing and letting the community express themselves. Totally.
And one thing you said that I just want to reinforce is that, in the past you had to be like, hey guys, could I be in your template gallery? Like, I think it's done now. And now what I love is that you don't have to stress about like being perfect before you publish, right? Like, you could publish like the first part of your doc and then add more to it. Like, if I think about my Learn Coda doc, I started with one section that was just the first set of videos. I then added another section on Friday last week. Here's like a new set. And then, I'm going to add this other element here. No, now I'm going to do this. And just knowing that since it's editable and an immediate update, you don't have to worry about like getting it perfect before you publish. Like you can just start to do it right away because frankly, it's about your ideas anyway. And if you're unsure like where to begin, I would take like the last email that you wrote or the last blog post that you wrote or the last tweet that you sent and figure out like, what is the idea that I'm trying to share? And then that can be your first point of publish. So I love that it kind of reduces the stress of like, it has to be a beautiful setup. Like, no, we're here at the World's Fair. What are you working on right now? I just want to see it, you know? Oh, cool, let's add some stuff here. And just seeing how people respond to it and creating that community of ideas, I think is really I'm excited to like travel ahead and be like, in 3 months, what are the things people are putting out there? All right, we got another question here, which is when can published docs be commercialized, like an app earning money for both parties? Love this idea.
It's something we talk about a lot and we've been talking about for years. You know, we think very long term about a lot of these things. We don't have anything to like announce specifically on that at the moment. We're thinking about a lot. One thing I'm interested to see if the people in the community will do, people publishing, is if people start doing some of that without us having built it as a first party thing. And so, you know, as I mentioned, you can turn off copying to docs. You can restrict access to who has access to some of these docs. And so one thing I'll be curious to see if people start publishing docs or parts of docs and saying, if you want the rest of this, I don't know, Venmo me some money or send money via this third party, and then you will share access with them. In the same way we see newsletters where you get some access to the newsletter and you have to pay for more. So I think there are ways the community can already do some of this. I'll be curious to see how that works and what we learn from some of that. And we've already seen some people start thinking in that way. And then, watch the space for when we let that.
Yeah, I think this is something that a bunch of people internally are really excited about because again, you know, part of our ethos and our mission is supporting makers, people who have those ideas. And one of the ways that we want to support them is like, we want you to be able to like make this profitable for yourself. And I know that Shashir, our CEO, is very, very passionate about this topic. So it's certainly like in our thoughts. We just don't have that first party solution like Glenn was saying. But there are lots of ways now that we've got these links together to start to do that more ad hoc. Like if you've got a digital download service, you could be like, oh, I'm going to put my doc behind this. I also encourage you to check out the crowdcast we'll be doing next Tuesday with Jeremy, who actually embedded like a way for people to subscribe to him inside of his Coda doc that he published, which is a really great way, again, to like build your community and you can then monetize from there. Awesome question, Jean-Pierre. Perfect. Another question. When a doc is copy protected, it will also not be possible to copy paste text from the browser. Interesting.
You'll still be able to do that. I mean, there's only so far we can kind of take that protection of what's in a doc, especially text-wise and stuff. There's just, you know, it's always been possible for people to screenshot or copy things from it. We could have taken it further than we did, but it sort of felt slightly disingenuous to say block you right-clicking like websites used to do in the 90s or whatever. And so it more just sort of makes it a lot harder for people, a lot less obvious for how they could get that data out. It's something we'll keep reviewing and how the copy paste works and what you get out of it and stuff. You know, we try not to expose your formulas and lots of that stuff. But there's only so far we can go with that kind of protection.
In the meantime, I would say if you want to have a more regulated control of your doc, publish is probably not the option. I would be inviting people in and then controlling what they're able to do with it. I think that's what I would do instead. Yeah, excellent question. Awesome. These questions are amazing. Anything else that we can help with today? Let us know. We've got about 5 more minutes. So if there's anything that Glenn or I can do to be of service or support, just say the word. We're here for you.
Other things. One other thing actually has been interesting seeing happen already internally with us publishing docs is how easy it is to collaborate when creating one of these things.
Totally.
Obviously, anyone that's used Coda, that's how docs can be built. That came for free for publishing. We didn't have to go build anything special. But when you're building, say, just a little website using publishing for your business or something, which we've seen a few of, it feels very different than, say, Squarespace, where it's just... And you can't do that at the same time. You can't see what each other's doing. And so we've seen a bunch of people collaborating in docs that they're building, which again is obvious as a Coda thing, but is different in this new world to what people have had before publishing. How easy it is to do that and see what the people are doing. Even with Medium, it doesn't have the collaborative cursors and stuff. It isn't built in that way. And so again, that's like an interesting new thing that Coda offers to this kind of world.
And I'll say our jobs page is a published Coda doc. So if you're like, ooh, I want to work at Coda, you're actually engaging with a Coda doc that's been published. And I personally love this use case for published of creating essentially your website. So if you're a small business owner, right, and you're going to be purchasing a website platform, that can run you, a couple $100s a year just for the service. And then you might need someone to help you design it to make it look really good and all of that. What I like about this is that you can actually create a really good, polished, like basic website with the core things that every small business owner needs, just the same way you would editing a doc. Put a nice header on each one of those pages. You have an about me. You can decide to have it be centered or wide. You can embed images there. You can have a link to email you. You can have buttons for people to, get in touch with you. But you're able to have, a list of all of your service offerings and then a link again to just email out or to another place. And it allows you to have that kind of first go while you're getting yourself started in a really economical way that's so much easier to edit if you are, a single player and just trying to make things work. So that's like the thing I hadn't anticipated as being something that people would build. But once I saw it, I was like, oh, yes, this is perfect.
And related to that, probably the most popular use case we've seen from a lot of people published so far has been just publishing a little personal website. If you want a way to describe yourself, projects you like, things you like, make a kind of online resume thing. But there's no easier way of doing that within, a few minutes.
Yeah.
And it's been great seeing those, and really fun to see people publishing those kind of.
Yeah. And for like the online resume, you can have like we saw with the superhuman thing of being able to filter a view. You could here, learn about my skills and drop down there. Ooh, great question here, Jean-Pierre. Getting statistics on access for a published doc would be a nice feature. Glenn, do you want to chat about kind of how we're thinking about this one?
Yeah, so we have some of that already. If you're in the doc and you open up the panel in the far right with the cog on the top, there's a thing called doc statistics, and that will tell you various statistics about your doc. And two of the new things we added in there were views and copies. So you can go see how many views has your doc had and how many copies have been made of it if you turn copy on or not. You also will get emails about that as well. Like if you hit certain thresholds, 100 people copy your doc or 500 people view your doc, you're going to get an email saying, great, your doc's doing really well, people are loving it, you should check that out. So there's a bunch of those things that are in place now, and we'll keep expanding what those are and stuff. There's I don't know if we'll ship it or not. There's some fun things we're exploring. We looked at building a whole dashboard system, but we also weren't sure exactly the stats people would need. So one thing we're looking at doing is building maybe a pack for it, so you can do the Coda thing. You can have a dashboard that we give you, but you also do whatever you want with your data. Look at yours.
Super cool, yeah.
I don't know if we'll ever get around to shipping it as some technical quirks with it, but that's the kind of thing we're looking at.
So Jean-Pierre, if there's any other statistics or access elements that you'd be interested in seeing, let me know by posting to chat. That's the best way for us to see if that aligns with where we're working. But yeah, in the very meantime, just click the gear menu in the upper right, choose doc statistics, and you'll get those basic stats. Awesome question. Another question here. Thanks, Nick. Fantastic. To that effect, will it be possible to have a published doc use your domain rather than coda.io?
Not in the short term is the quick answer. I would say that we've probably had the 3 most common requests I've seen since we shipped this, which is only on Monday, have been, can I change my maker name? Yes, as of this afternoon. Can I publish to my own domain? Which is something we talked about a bunch. We descoped it because it's challenging for a few reasons, but it is something we're exploring. No announcement on when, we haven't started working on it yet. And the third most requested thing is probably, can I publish to just my team? And that is something we're very actively exploring right now, and we'll probably have more to talk about in the next couple of months.
But I would say, and Glenn, let me know if this is incorrect, if you had a domain, www.mariaisthebest.com, you could, in your domain settings, have it forward to your then Coda doc if you wanted to. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So we saw people do that before, and you can still do that. You can redirect. It's not going to be, when they redirect, it will change to the URL of Coda. But there are ways of kind of having some experience now. We've seen some people do this, like Jeremy with his everything.pm. It goes to his doc.
And I would say for any of you who are interested in these, always please let us know these feature requests by sending it to support@coda.io. We take those very seriously. We have an entire Coda doc that prioritizes everything that the PMs are consistently working with. So the best way to flag it, in addition to letting us know here, is also make it official. Send us an email. It doesn't bother us at all. It is a gift. So please let us know. Awesome. So we're right here at the top of the hour. Oh, great. Jean-Pierre, I'm so glad that the stats and axis sounds good. And then this idea of maybe geographic info, like, ooh, where in the world are my doc users? Yeah, fantastic. So I do want to be respectful of all of your time. Thank you so much for all of your questions today. It has been an absolute blast spending this time with you and understanding kind of how you're thinking about this feature. Thank you, Glenn, for giving us your time and your insights today. It's always fun to be able to get under the hood, behind the scenes. Really enjoying that as well. So let us know if there's anything else that we can support you with. Definitely check out the Coda community, and this replay will be available. So if you want to revisit anything, you can always watch it on our channel, and definitely tune in for our future broadcasts. We're really excited about it. So have a great weekend, everyone. Happy making, happy publishing. We can't wait to see what you Coda and put out there in the world. So have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye.